Hi, I'm John Craven from BevNET.com, and today I'm here with Debbie Wildrick. I guess you're a real veteran of the industry who now is working with Bazi. So
yes.
Thanks for having me, Debbie.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, well, we're in sunny Naples. It's hard to not be glad to be here. So yeah, you're now working with Bazi. You've been into a bunch of startups, FRS, Equal Water, big companies in 7-Eleven and Tropicana. You know, I think it'd be great just to hear your perspective on the market at this point, and tell us why you got into Bazi.
Okay. Well, first of all, the reason I got into Bazi is because I really do have an entrepreneurial spirit, and I just had the opportunity to talk to my ex-boss at 7-Eleven last week, and he reminded me of that. Even at 7-Eleven, when I was building beverage businesses, it was really entrepreneurial, and I think that that's what you have to have, that entrepreneurial spirit to want to work for a startup, because it's not a walk in the park. And so Bazi is a startup, very entrepreneurial, but more importantly, in today's market, you have to have a product that's differentiated to be successful. And Bazi happens to be like no other energy shot on the market. Energy shots is a lot like sports drinks, is a lot like coffee. There's the first mover, and the first mover has been extremely successful. And even Red Bull and Monster, who are the largest brands on the energy drink side, have not been successful on the shot side. So I do believe, especially from reading the latest research, that you have to be healthy. You have to be able to prove it, and you have to really do something more sustained. The FRS story is sustained energy. The Bazi story is sustained energy. It's lifetime energy, because we have a higher ORAC value, or antioxidant value, than anything on the market.
So trying to speak to the differentiation of why it's not another 5-hour, right?
Right, exactly.
And before we were talking about just how many people, I think you probably know the stat better than me, have not yet tried energy drinks or shots. Do you think that the health aspect is part of the missing link, or?
Yeah, I absolutely do, because of the research that I just read from Mintel. It is I say 7 out of 10. 3 people of every 10 have tried energy drinks or shots. The ones that haven't believe that those on the market are bad for them, or they believe that they don't know anything about them, so they don't want to try them. And the press continues to just inundate us with bad information about energy products. The funny thing is, a lot of energy products on the market today, including 5-hour as an example, really don't have bad ingredients in them. They many times put much more ingredient levels in their products than what we think is normal, or the consumer, quite honestly, abuses them. And so there's this ton of bad press, and so the consumer that isn't using them has no desire whatsoever to try them, but they still need energy. They still need energy. We went to NACS with Bazi, and of course I was just working with them at the time, and the CEO took off his badge, Kevin Sherman. He took off his badge and he walked the show, and he interviewed retailers. And they said, "Oh, you're just another energy shot, basically. Oh, healthy." Another term I believe that's overused is healthy. And so, we're really going out with more natural than healthy. And we did that. We found that through research that was a term that was actually growing with the consumer, whereas healthy was taking a nosedive. And it's because, a Chick-fil-A can be healthy.
Everything's healthy, right?
Yeah.
Or healthier, I suppose.
Or healthier, yeah. So we have just done a lot of remessaging, rebranding, and a lot of it came out of the NACS show and the introduction of another energy shot at NACS, and we just couldn't afford to be that.
What about flavor? I mean, that's something that a lot of people say energy drinks don't taste good, or I would say, generally speaking, shots are worse. Bazi seems like it actually has tried to make a flavor that's palatable. Do you think that's part of the equation too, or?
You know, back in my days of 7-Eleven, I started with the company when Red Bull was really pretty much the only thing on the shelf. There was one shelf. Well, today, if you know convenience stores, there's a whole door of energy. And new suppliers would come in all the time and say, you know, it doesn't taste like Red Bull. It tastes good. And I'd say, well, I don't want it then. So there's an acquired taste, first of all. Taste is not as important, but you know, that could be some of the differentiation that you could offer in the category for the future to bring in those consumers that don't try it. So there's a play there.
Now, Bazi has done direct-to-consumer sales, and that, I think, was a pretty key part of how they got started, right?
Right.
And that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs often ask us about, you know, can I go direct to consumers? You know, maybe they can't get distribution, don't have the money, whatever it might be. You know, do you have any thoughts on that strategy? Has that worked for Bazi?
And you mean e-commerce, right?
I guess so.
Okay. Yeah. My better story with e-commerce is FRS, the FRS story. Bazi was a multi-level marketing brand before it started to launch at retail, and we have been successful with e-commerce, and you can build an e-commerce business today with the internet, but it doesn't necessarily build your brand. FRS actually very aggressively went after the consumer, direct to the consumer, with a plan that was basically I'll give you 14 days free trial, and then you were signed up onto a monthly auto ship. The plan drove revenue levels 3 times what we were driving at retail, but it didn't necessarily build brand. And so that's what the challenge is with regard to e-commerce. You really need to have a real happy middle road here, if you will. You know, build the e-commerce. What we're doing this year in media, and we've just put together an awesome media plan for startup companies, is really taking advantage of the internet, but we're still going to drive consumers to retail first, and then they can go on and click to the website. But the important thing is that you got to build your brand at retail. That's really what builds brands.
So now you've got 7-Eleven that you're going to be working with. So how does that, you know, how does a Bazi go into a 7-Eleven where the counter has already got, you know, 5-hour and probably a handful of other stuff there?
Well, and even the challenge with 7-Eleven is that, you know, their counter space, they still really operate with a clean store philosophy. And so Bazi may or may not, depending on how aggressive that store manager is or that franchise owner is at believing in the product and believing that they can indeed pull new consumers into that category and then therefore increase their product sales, they will choose whether or not to put it on the counter. Otherwise, we're in the schematic next to 5-hour with our messaging on our box. And so, you know, we've got to connect our media plan with the shelf space, with the message on the box, and be able to do it in 30 seconds.
You know, let's talk about the market a little bit. You have mentioned a bunch of times, I think even, excuse me, at our conferences about, you know, market oversaturation and, you know, I guess they're sort of it growing to these like peak levels where there's just too much stuff out there, and you know, maybe you can talk about that a little bit. You'll probably say it better than I tried to.
Well, I call it saturation because every category really does reach a saturation point. You know, when I started in this industry, my first brand that I worked for was owned by the Strawberry Company. It was Sundance Juice Sparklers, now Izzy, by the way. And there was Coke and Pepsi on the shelf, and then New York Seltzer and Perrier in the green bottle. You really couldn't even buy bottled water.
Sure.
And so as we began to develop products, which I think we as a country, as a marketplace, you know, just love to do that, you know, compared to our some of our European counterparts, as an example. You know, we just kept on incrementally growing the categories through new products, and we were satisfying needs of the consumer, but the consumer can only consume so much. I used to ask Coke and Pepsi in my day of running beverages at 7-Eleven. I would say, can you tell me, is consumption increasing? Are our stomachs getting larger? And, I mean, what's happening here? And you really can't, it's really even hard to understand that. But at some point, we only consume so many beverages a day, period.
Well, do you think that with functional beverages, there could be just functional oversaturation? I mean, having the tea category with too many products and the the water category, those are very distinctive things.
Right.
Whereas at this point we have, companies trying to launch, new functions. Do we just get to a point where, I don't know, we can't handle anymore, detox, relaxation, focus?
Absolutely. And the other thing that I've learned about the last couple years is that the consumer is really tired of clutter. And clutter in messaging, clutter in products, clutter in every part of their life. And what they do, how they respond, is they just start blocking it out. Functional beverages are a part of our future, and they will continue to be. But we've got to get it right. We've got to know that we're addressing a need that's not being addressed today. We have to have efficacy. And we didn't always have that.
Well, I mean, I guess maybe the question is why do you think no, there's sort of, I suppose, Gatorade and sports drinks, probably Starbucks and coffee. You've got
another example, yeah.
Coke and Pepsi and carbonated. I mean, that kind of leaves, I suppose, shots, energy drinks, I don't know, tea maybe for entrepreneurs. I mean,
teas, I do believe, although teas are starting to get saturated too, but teas and waters, more so than other beverage categories, have the ability to enhance with functional ingredients. So it's easier to do that. We were talking about Uba earlier, and Uba was an enhanced soda, basically. It doesn't resonate as much with the consumer. 7-Up, did one of the first enhanced
right, I remember that
sodas. Yeah. So I just think that teas are natural. Teas have become much more natural because of the brands that have been successful, like Honest Tea, and so the consumer says, well, I'm okay if you enhance this product.
Well, I think it's great to hear someone talking about the challenges. You obviously understand them. Hopefully you and Bazi can go out there and check those off and make it happen. Is there anything else you want to talk about here before we wrap up, I guess? I think
that's it. I think we managed to cover a lot of
good
ground.
Stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, thanks a lot, Debbie.
All right. Thank you.